Hey guys, Selwyn here from JDM Motorsport. Here we have Mike's FD RX-7 drift car that we've built for him, and today I'm going to run you through the build. So when Mike purchased this car, Mike and I sat down to plan out the build, and it was quick to establish that the spec of the current vehicle wasn't really aligning with Mike's vision of the car that he wanted when it was said and done. So we quickly decided that we were going to gut the car and start from scratch. Moving on to the engine bay, it's a 13B Bridgeport turbo engine, produces anywhere between 450 and 650 horsepower. It's got a Garrett G35 turbo, runs on E85, fully dry sumped. It's a really cool bit of kit. The FD RX-7 platform it's quite tricky really, because it's an awesome chassis, but it's a very small chassis. So fitting a lot of hardware in here, it poses a lot of challenges. So when we look at planning out a lot of this hardware, it's a tight packed car. You know, the OEM car has a lot of hardware in there from factory. You know, they're quite hard to work on. So when we look at these motorsport cars, we're gutting them back to then start the build, but we have some really big parts to fit in there, big coolers, manifolds, wiring, plumbing, and you know, we really need to be a few steps ahead of ourselves as we're building these cars, so that when we get to the end result, everything is well thought out and planned and it works seamlessly. Yeah, so this vehicle's running MCA coilovers all round, a full Wisefab suspension setup. It has a massive brake kit front and rear, as well as a hydro handbrake setup. It's got a direct clutch services twin plate clutch in it, and a HGT sequential gearbox, and we also have a Mazda Speed rear end diff in it. It's a really awesome drivetrain. So moving into the back of Mike's car really showcases another group of hardware that we have to fit into this small chassis. You know, we've got a Radium Engineering fuel cell here that we've had to fit into the vehicle that houses all the fuel for the car. We have a massive radiator here that cools the engine and keeps the coolant temps at check. Behind all that, in around the safety structure, the roll cage of the car, we have the dry sump oil tank, oil coolers, we've got PDMs, the battery, the breather system. There's a lot of hardware in this small chassis tucked in the back here. If you look through, you'll see that these coupes are actually, they're quite a hard chassis to comply with, mainly because in a coupe we don't have a rear firewall that's factory from the car being made. So we have to introduce all of that to keep the driver safe from, you know, any of this hardware in the back of the car. Bringing all these structures together, of course, is the wiring for this vehicle. It has a full Link ECU setup in it, Motec PDM structure that does all the power of the vehicle. In the back here shows a really good example across this Radium fuel cell, where we've brought the wiring in for the fuel pumps and the fuel level. It's a part that we will service regularly, so we want to be able to bulkhead that firewall connector and remove the fuel tank hanger very easy. We don't want to be sitting there messing around with little nuts and bolts at the track, so we can unplug that firewall connector and remove it and service it really well. Safety's a massive priority for us. When we're building these cars, yep, they look awesome, they're fast, they're loud, they're doing everything they should be, but right at the very start, the safety is the most paramount for us. We're building these cars to our customers' dreams or specifications, but we are always planning ahead to make sure the car conforms to Australian standards, if not more. You know, we're looking at Motorsport Australia documentation, we're buying parts that are SFI and FIA approved to make sure that, you know, there are top level safety parts going into this car. These fuel tanks are a beautiful piece of kit. You know, they're probably the heart of the safety of this car, because when we think of it, not only for the vehicle crashing and having a roll cage around the driver, fuel is the next biggest enemy. So these Radium fuel cells are the absolute go-to for us. You know, they're SFI and FIA approved, and they're a beautiful piece of hardware. The roll cage is the next structure for the safety for us. We want to make sure that our customers, the drivers, are protected to the best of their ability. You know, guys can look at these cars and think they're just a drift car, but the level of the years going on has just increased and increased. These cars are very fast, they have a heap of horsepower, and their angle is is huge, you know. Their road speed is very, very quick. So we want to make sure that we're talking and aware of that if something was to happen, that our drivers are protected to the safety regulations. So we're making sure that these roll cages are up to spec, you know, the full harnesses and how the seats are mounted correctly, whether or not the vehicle has multiple fire extinguisher systems, whether it be handheld, easy accessible ones, or fire suppression systems for the full vehicle. You know, that stuff is really, really important to us. Yeah, so here in the cockpit of the car, you know, when we're planning this area out, the key feature is that, is it comfortable for the driver? You know, Mike's a really tall dude, he's much taller than I am, so this steering wheel position wouldn't suit for me, but it suits for Mike. So we get the seating position, it's got a Willwood pedal box in there, so we make sure the pedal box is correct, and then we move things around to the steering column, the shifter, the handbrake. You know, the hydro handbrake is a big part for the drifters. Some guys have pull style, some guys use a conventional, you know, lift up style. Although it's a hydraulic handbrake, Mike likes the lift up style one. When the harnesses are on, he has to be able to access everything. So the control keypad here and the isolator is a big part, you know. We need to be able to press the buttons and control the car without having to loosen off the harnesses. Yeah, we had a lot of fun building this car with Mike. You know, Mike is an absolute straight shooter. He's been around the traps a long time and he's built some tough cars. You know, Mike was definitely not a dude that didn't want to be involved with this car. He's a fabricator by trade, so he dove in here and did a heap of fabrication himself. Bringing this car together on a technical level with Mike is absolutely, you know, my biggest passion. We went out and did a cheeky couple of test days, and then we ran this car straight out at Matsuri, and it was absolutely flawless, you know. Seeing Mike and his boy out there having a huge amount of fun, and me spinning spanners for him, changing tyres and some fuel all weekend is like the absolute cherry on the top for me, man. It was so much fun doing it. I'm incredibly grateful for my team and building this car for Mike. It was a beautiful result, really.